Um, Hello, thank you very much for accepting our presentation. This is a joint presentation between Mandana, Siripen, Beam, and I, but only Beam and I are going to present, and we are going to talk about a bottom-up approach for archive creation that we have developed during a joint project that we will describe in a minute. But before we start the description of the project, I need to give you some feedback, some background information. So the Research Institute for Language and Cultures of Asia has experience in linguistic fieldwork and community development, having initiated language revitalization and bilingual education programs in more than 20 minority languages. They have worked on intangible cultural heritage of many ethnic groups in Thailand, but the data is not easily accessible, neither to the communities nor to other researchers. And this is a problem that is not only in Thailand, but all over the world. So we see a lot of scholars collecting materials, and we cannot access this material. So there is a need to increase the number of local archives to support communities and scholars in their efforts to maintain, document, and preserve their languages. However, large-scale digital infrastructure requires on the one side financial and institutional long-term commitment, and on the other side technical expertise that is not always available as it should be for the implementation of large-scale digital infrastructures. So we have to rethink the way we approach the need to increase local archives, and this is exactly what we have done. And we develop a bottom-up approach based on small-scale projects. And this is exactly one of these small-scale projects that we want to discuss and present you today. So the Archive of Language and Cultures of Ethnic Groups of Thailand is a project supported by the Newton Fund, Institutional Links from the British Council. It was a collaboration between the Endangered Languages Archive at SOAS University of London and the Research Institute for Languages and Cultures of Asia at Mayol University. The project has the duration of 1 year. It took place in 2019. And the major goal was the implementation of a local digital infrastructure for using Mokutu. Why we decided to use Mokutu, which is a CMS system, I will explain you in a minute. But before that, the bottom-up approach was based on 3 core principles that we will discuss later on. So namely capacity building and empowerment, grassroots initiative, and valorization of intangible cultural heritage. Why Mokutu? We know that Mokutu is a CMS system, only a CMS system without a preservation layer, which would be important for an archive. But it was developed based on archiving core principles, and it introduces its users to the basics of archiving. Apart from that, so apart from this, from providing the basic knowledge of archiving, for instance, standardization of metadata, standardization of formats, and so on, it is community-oriented CMS infrastructure with low costs, so it's cheap in comparison to other archiving systems, and the IT support or technical expertise that is needed is very low as well, which again makes it easy to manage and to maintain. And it has a user-friendly interface that is, I would not say easily, but it's adaptable to other language, so it can be localized. This is exactly what we have done. And it responds to different needs of the communities, like different levels of access, respecting data sensitivity, community wishes. So all this together fits into one of our core principles, namely community empowerment. How was this community empowerment done? So we started with a training in London. So a team from the Research Institute for Languages and Cultures of Asia visits ELAR at SOAS. And we started a training on digitization of analog materials that were available at Mayol University. And we worked with these materials to introduce basic concepts and general workflows for archiving, file names, file formats, for preservation, curation strategies, metadata creation, backup, and so on. And we also developed an archiving workflow adapted to the infrastructure, the platform that we were implementing. Namely, we developed an archiving workflow for Mokutu. The plate you see on the right side is what we have created during one of our lunchtime. So you can see here how intensive our training in London was, that we used the lunchtime to brainstorm our ideas and to catch all the needs in terms of what needs to be presented and how the data needs to be processed, so that we achieve our goal of creating these archival presence, or this online presence for the materials of the intangible cultural heritage in Thailand. Also for the capacity building and empowerment, we had, and this was really important for the success of the project, was we had regular meetings, weekly meetings between, for instance, Beam and I. Beam, which is who is the one responsible for the maintenance and the management of the archive in Thailand. We had weekly meetings to discuss archiving issues, for instance, problems they had with the workflows that we have developed in London, and we had to adjust them. Problems, technical problems with metadata creation or formats, different formats, or also problems with the localization of the interface, and also to discuss the feedback that we received from the users. And we had meetings every 2 weeks to discuss with the whole team, to discuss project-related activities like organization of conferences, of workshops, of other trainings. After that, we gave a training on data collection and archiving at Maydoll University, and Beam is going to provide more details on this training. But it was important because these kind of trainings served as model for further further knowledge transfer. So the Thai team took these trainings, created help sheets, and developed their own trainings based on what we have created together, and adapted these trainings to the local reality. So giving trainings in several parts in Thailand. One of the things that was developed throughout the project, and for us was very important, was the feedback and the input from community members and future users of the archive. So the Thai team, in order to improve and to enrich the digitized materials, the Thai team organized data collection weeks in several communities. And during these weeks, they trained the participants in data collection and archiving. These, again, helped us to get input from the community members and local teachers, because these were mainly the people participating in the trainings. And they gave us feedback on the whole process, from data collection to the archiving part. So we could adapt the interface, but also the archiving workflows to respond to their needs. And on the other side, as we will see later on, the input from the depositor, from the users, will also show why the data is being now used in a differentiated way, because people were trained on collecting data and on archiving the materials, so they know where to find the materials. Then the third core principle is valorization. Of course, valorization of self-identity, valorization of intangible cultural heritage in Thailand, and we achieved this at local and national level. For instance, having a fully localized interface was really important to get the trust of the users. So there was no language barrier when we compared, for instance, with well-established archives where the major archive language is English. So there was more trust in using this local infrastructure. And this was also a way to deconstruct the colonial register, because there was this feeling of we built this together. And because the users were trained on collecting materials, but also on archiving the materials themselves, they have more control over the data. And also the results of all these trainings and the impact that we were getting from different sides made or raised the interest from the institutional side. And we started a discussion with the IT department of Maydoll University to see what is the possibility of integrating Mokutu in the digital infrastructure of the university, and how to do the next step, which is to create preservation layer, or to combine Mokutu with the preservation layer that is missing at the moment. But as I said at the beginning, this was a small-scale project that should serve as a model to see if it works out, and then we can go from there with clear results and a step further. At international level, it was really important to the international conference that we organized at the end of the project, where Professor Gary Holton participated and talked about Mokutu, other Mokutu archives, this conference made the archive visible in the network of other existing archives, not only in Thailand, but in the neighboring countries, and also in the platform or in the group of institutions that use Mokutu as platform. So this conference allowed us to promote the archive at an international level. But now Bhima is going to show you more details, concrete details about the archive and concrete examples of what you can find in the archive.
And now I am going to introduce the Lang Archive TH. It is the archive for languages and cultures of ethnic groups of Thailand. The website interface is, as you can see, is localized to Thai, and it is the first time a Mokutu instance is completely localized. The localization was one of our major goals because it makes the platform more suitable for preservation and dissemination purpose, since our target depositors and audiences are Thai people, especially ethnic group members. Okay, next, we are currently, the Lang Archive TH has 18 collections from 18 ethnic groups in Thailand, including Hakka, Tak Bai, Gong, Patani Malay, Chung, Sak, Chong, for example. And now we have uploaded 421 digital heritage items, which consist of various media types, such as videos, audio files, text documents, pictures, and ELAN files. Okay, next we are going to talk about the workshops we held. The workshop called Language Documentation and Archiving Workshops. The main goal of it was to transfer the knowledge about language documentation, data management, and archiving to the local communities in order to encourage their members to collect, manage, archive their own data, like especially language and cultural data by themselves. And the participants were mostly lecturers, local teachers, master and PhD students, ethnic community members, among other people interested in intangible cultural heritage in Thailand. The workshops were held at local educational institutes, including Mahidol University, Trat Community College, Chiang Rai Ratchapat University, and Pattani Province for lecturers and community members there. And the participants learned multimedia documentation processes and all steps related to the data processing for archiving purpose. For instance, they have learned the difference between a variety of recording equipment and how to select and use it depending on the communicative events to be documented. And they learned different recording techniques, but also, and more importantly, how to process the data and how to create the metadata and how to load the materials to the archive. And next, we are going to talk about the result of the workshop. We got a wonderful collection uploaded by Phimrapat Rongsawat, a member of the community Tak Bai, who is also a master degree student of Mahidol University. He is the native speaker of Tak Bai, a language from Thai Kadai language family spoken in Narathiwat province of Thailand. And next slide, please. He participated in the first workshop held at Mahidol University together with the ILA team. You can see him in the red shirt there. He went back to his hometown at Talang village and to document the Thai Tak Bai language and culture. And he uploaded 39 bundles of audio and video recordings to the archive. You can see in the next slides, including vocabularies, narratives, traditions, rituals, verbal arts, games, and procedurals. Moreover, he was in contact with the school director of local school, Ban To Lang School, because he intended to utilize those data as taught by language teaching materials. Furthermore, he was also involved in the training of other community members in other workshops, and thus transferring the knowledge immediately acquired.
So I think this is a very good example that shows us how the three core principles were achieved throughout the project. This is only one of the examples that we could show, but here you can see how we can go from capacity building and empowerment to a really community-oriented archive with a differentiated use by the community itself. So thank you very much, and please visit the archive and give us your feedback.
Thank you.